Welcome to TRS, Your Retirement in Focus. I'm your host, Everett Crockett. Ladies and gents, we at TRS hope that you and your family are doing well as the pages of the calendar continue to turn. And today we have a very special guest with us. Today joining us is Dale Alexander, the president and founder of Alexander and Company. Mr. Alexander serves as the chief visioneer, and I just love that title, motivator, and head of corporate influence at Alexander and Company. He has 34 years experience working with public school employee benefit plans. And according to their website, Mr. Alexander married way out of his league. And I thought I was the only one who did that.
Yes.
He and his wife Kimberly are blessed with three awesome children and live in Canton, Georgia. Mr. Alexander, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I appreciate that, Everett. Thank you all so much for letting me speak to your members. Appreciate it.
Yes,
Both
sir.
my parents, by the way, were educators. Dad's superintendent, mom teacher. So they were participants of your great retirement system. I've personally benefited from the work that you do. So I appreciate this.
That is awesome. Very well done. Well, how's your family doing, Dale? Everybody doing okay?
They are. Mom's keeping us all in line. I've got three kids. The oldest daughter, 23, just graduated from college. The middle one, she was at Ole Miss. The middle son, 21, is at Kennesaw State, Grant. And the baby, 19, is second year at Ole Miss. So in fact, got dad's weekend this weekend. So I gotta head out and go in there.
Wow.
Everybody's doing great. Thank you. Thriving. Appreciate you.
Great to hear. Great to hear. Okay, let's get going, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely.
So first of all, Dale, tell us about yourself.
So born and raised in South Georgia, born in Hayhira. Most people don't know where that is. So it's a suburb of Sparks. That should clear it all up, right? Valdosta. I'm a South Georgia guy. Graduated from Dooley County High School in Vienna. Dad was the superintendent there when I graduated. Went to Valdosta State and Georgia State. Got out, was a financial planner. As a financial planner, fell in love with the study of money. I'll come back to that, I'm sure, in this podcast. And went to work for an insurance company, American Fidelity, and worked with school systems, selling insurance to schools. Got my certified financial planning designation just because I love the study of money, what to do with it. Left that insurance company in 1995, started Alexander and Company, which is an insurance brokerage company, and kind of built the passion and mission of this company.
Outstanding. I like what you said. You like the study of money. I've never quite looked at it like that, but I can tell you what, having learned what I learned as of today, that's a very valuable thing to study.
Well, I used to say I love money, and that's not. I loved the study of what to do with it. And I don't know why, but in college, that kind of jumped on me. And I just found myself loving looking at like studying a mutual fund. What did it do? And reading books about it. And I don't know, that just carried on. And it's a fascinating story of how that carried on into what we do in insurance. So it translated to that. So I said I got the certified financial planner, and then got a couple of other designations, chartered financial consultant, some other things that nobody really cares about. But I just love studying what to do with it. And we're going to talk about some of that today.
Yes, sir. Clearly, it's a passion of yours, and I'm looking forward to continuing the discussion. So, Dale, what is the mission of Alexander and Company?
Oh, man. You ready for this? Early on, when I was sitting there enrolling teachers in schools, I began to think about that financial planning and the study of what to do with money. And I got out of college and worked for a financial planning firm. And, I was helping people that had lots of money. They really didn't need me. I was just moving their money around to different places. But when I started working in schools doing employee benefits for teachers, I began to realize I'm the closest thing many of these people come to sitting down with a financial planner. And so I started thinking, why don't we, when I left, I said, I think I can do this a different way. And so I left and started Alexander and Company. And if you think about this, most people do the majority of our financial planning. We protect the financial risks that we have in our lives through the employee benefits that are offered to us at work. Think about it. It's where we protect our health.
Mm-hmm.
It's where we protect our income. We buy our life insurance. We even protect our ability to retire one day through a retirement plan, a 403B or a 401k, a pension plan. I mean, we do most of our financial planning through benefits at work. That's why I studied and got my certified financial planning designation. And some of my work colleagues back then would kind of laugh at me and say, "Why are you studying that? Nobody really cares." I didn't care that nobody else cared. I cared.
Wow.
And I wanted to approach an insurance brokerage firm as a financial planner for tens of thousands of school employees. Because people don't go out there and hire stockbrokers and financial planners. They do most of what they do through employee benefits. So how we build products, how we communicate them, how we enroll them, we're functioning as the financial planner for these employees. And I love our kind of mission and story is we promote basic financial planning through employee benefits by creating environments where people are comfortable and find it easy to make their best decisions. Because most people hate this stuff, to be honest with you, Everett. They hate not your stuff, but they're not naturally attracted to insurance. And so we just tried to build a company from an outsider perspective and not an insider perspective that focuses on building the best things for people and helping to get them there the easiest for them. So
wow.
I love what we do. I love what we do.
That is awesome. And you're so right. Just about every avenue of our lives, we plan and prepare around based on opportunities given at our employers. So I know I'm that way, and I'm assuming that's the case with most of our listeners as well. So great insight by you and your company for what you've done and what you're continuing to do to this day.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
So, Dale, what are your connections to educators in the state of Georgia and educators nationwide?
Well, I'll get emotional here. My mom and dad were educators. Mom taught 26 years, and dad was a school superintendent for 22 of his 31 years in education.
Wow.
Dad, his longtime mentor suddenly died down in South Georgia, and Dad's 34 years old, thrust into this spotlight, being asked to be the superintendent. First year of integration in Georgia schools. First day of work, state patrolman lining the steps of your high school. Dad, he made some incredibly hard decisions, but he made decisions based on kids, and our house was shot. My mom's hung up the phone just bawling in tears from being yelled at by somebody. And so I tell our clients in schools, I've grown up on your side of the desk. I've seen what you've gone through. And my dad made incredibly hard but great decisions. So I've just grown up around educators. Here's something. There's a big educational conference called GALE, Georgia Association of Educational Leaders. I've been to it 44 years in a row. Since I was 11, I started that conference and never missed a year of that conference. So anyways, so I've just grown up around educators. I love educators. And people say, well, why aren't you an educator? In a way I am. I just loved business. And again, that study of money. And so I have the best of both worlds. I get to work in business with educators and hopefully make their lives better. So I love this podcast. I love talking to these members of yours. And I'm going to talk, by the way, because my mama, whenever she'd be talking to somebody doing something at our house or helping her, she'd say, now, if I was your mama, what would you do? Tell me what you would do if I were your mama. So that's how I'm going to talk, as if everybody listening to this were my parent. So
wow. That's
how we'll talk.
Great perspective. And I can't even imagine, as I listen to you right there, the weight on the shoulders of your dad and your entire family at that time, as you said, where things were starting to shift. I'm just kind of trying to imagine it, but I'm sure I don't even come close. But great leaders have to make tough decisions. So hats off to your dad for the foresight and the thought and the concern he had for kids. I mean, and that's the whole premise. That's what it's all about, really. And so hats off to him and for you and your family for what you sacrificed and did. I personally appreciate that.
Thank you, buddy. As a kid, I don't know that I appreciated the weight of it. They lost friends and we had to move. And I'll never forget that middle of my 7th grade year, walking out of there, turning around, waving to all my buddies by. But looking back at that now, as you remember, as people are listening to this, character leaves a legacy. What's interesting is coming behind my father working for schools. I had a finalist presentation, to get off track here for just a minute. I had a finalist presentation one night, and a board member, as I'm talking, he said, my dad was a school superintendent right near here. And the board chairman stops me. He says, wait a second, is your daddy Warren Alexander? And, Everett, I couldn't wait to say, yes, sir, that's my father, because I couldn't wait to hear what he was going to say about my dad. There was no hesitation. And he turns to his board members and he says, I knew this man's daddy, and he's a great man. This guy has to be a great man. And it was that character left a legacy and kind of paved the way for me coming in the future. So I just challenge us all to leave great legacies for our kids, because I'm walking in that shadow of my dad.
Outstanding. That is just awesome right there. Wow.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Dale, are there things that you find common that TRS members have not thought about as they are preparing for their retirement?
That's a great question. Pre-plan, here's a mistake. Pre-plan thinking about what you want to do with benefits after retirement. A big one is life insurance. And so many times we see educators and talking to school benefit folks, you just kind of retire and walk in there and start trying to figure out what benefits they want to take post-retirement. Certainly things like life insurance, and many of the life insurance plans at the places people will work allow them to take it beyond retirement. And there's a couple of types of life insurance: term insurance and permanent insurance. And they differ in the price and kind of how long they're meant to be kept. And so just be thinking about these things. It's a classic mistake that we see people make, is they wait until they're ready to retire and walk in the board office and say, well, can I keep my life insurance? And they go, yeah, well, this plan you have is going to be a lot more expensive than if you had done it several years before. So talk to the people. If you're listening to this and you're an active educator still, talk to your benefits folks kind of well before you 5-10 years out, if you can, you still have that time, and begin to prepare what you want to take with you post-retirement. It's kind of a mistake we see people miss every now and then.
What would be the single most important thing that future retirees can do to better prepare for financial security in retirement?
I'll say 4 things. First of all, let me put my financial planning hat on. Manage debt. Manage your debt. So try and get your debt under control. If you can, as a retiree, and talking to so many retirees, try and have no home debt headed into retirement. Try and have your home paid off headed into retirement. Years ago, I can't remember the study, maybe 80% or 60% had no mortgage headed into retirement. Now that's completely flipped. 60 or 80% have a mortgage headed into retirement. I can't remember the number, and I apologize. Shouldn't give numbers if you don't know it. But it flipped, and many people have a mortgage headed into retirement. If you can, try not to do that. If you were listening to this and you were just starting out, I don't know if there's anybody, or if you have a child who's just starting out, here's something way ahead of the curve to do that. And I'm going to come back to a talk that I have called The Talk About Money. I want to come back to that. But if you were just starting out, if all of these retirees could back up to the beginning, when you get your first big job, instead of taking 100% of it, take 70% of it and live on 70 from their own. I'm going to come back to that. I want to come back to that point. Let's not forget that. And if you can't back up and live on 70% of your income, which probably most people listening to this can't, I would just say this. Any new money that comes into your house in the future, any raise, anything you sell, any just kind of new bonus money that comes in, however it does, don't take 100% of that. Take half of it, take 70% of it, take none of it and put it all into your budget. And then those future, any of those, if you're still get some more degrees or you get, raises, step raises or whatever, all that extra money just goes into saving and investment, and then you're living on less and less of your gross income. Let's see, a last thing. The younger you are, the more risk you can take in your saving.
Wow.
Okay. Mm-hmm. The younger you are, and this is huge with me, because educators make so many times, educators make such a mistake in this. The younger you are, the more risk you could take in your savings and investments. And you have to start out with this thought. Every investment option has risk. Being too safe has risk. Okay?
Yeah.
A bank account has risk. A bond has risk. Even though those are more conservative things, if you're young and you're putting in that long term, that has risk. Your money's not outpacing inflation and taxes. Everything has risk. As you learn becoming a financial planner, all investment options have risk. The younger you are, the more risk you can take in your saving over the years. I can come back to that in the future. We can come back and talk more about that if you want to.
Wow, great advice right there. There's no such thing as too much good information. And so I appreciate you sharing that with us. Great.
Well, back to that, and kind of not self-fulfilling prophecy, it's a perpetuating falsehood that educators, I hear people say, well, educators are conservative. They're not conservative. It's just that anytime we don't understand something, we back down and take it easier, a little bit safer. It's just that nobody, or they may not have just learned how to think about certain things and look from other angles. So I just want to kind of talk through that today.
Awesome. Knowledge is power, so that is well appreciated.
Amen.
So is there advice that you can give surrounding employee benefits?
When we work with the school, we usually have a benefits committee of all different kinds of employees, cross-section of the population, and we start that class kind of with a principle is that insurance is only used to cover those things we financially cannot afford to pay for. Now, you go, everybody understands that, though. I mean, who doesn't understand that? Well, hang on. In doing this business for 30-something years, I look at what they take in their insurance benefits, what you're buying, and you sit there and you go, why would you ever pay for that? You're insuring a risk it's not a huge risk. It's not worth buying an insurance policy to insure. You can financially afford to pay for that X. I'll come back and tell you. At least it's not worth buying an insurance policy to insure. And then you see things that people don't take. And you say, why would you not protect this? Let me give you some examples. Like, we can sell these things, but like an accident policy or a hospital indemnity policy or a policy maybe that just covers accidental death, not normal life insurance, but accidental deaths. And you look at these things like an accident policy. You're buying an insurance policy that might pay a couple of $100s for a cut finger or a dislocated, finger or stitches in the head. And you sit there and you go, when you look at what people get out of these things, you think, why would you insure that? It's, take that money and save it because it's an insurable risk. And then you look and somebody may not be protecting their income, say through disability insurance, ensuring that your paycheck keeps coming in for the rest of your working life. And it's very inexpensive when you look at what it does. You know, we insure cameras and car tires and refrigerators, but I'm not going to ensure my income keeps coming in for the rest of my working life.
Wow.
And so you just, from a financial planner's, and I kind of just because of classically what I've studied, I look at this stuff from that perspective, from a financial planning perspective. And you sit there and you go, remember, insurance is only used to cover those things we financially cannot afford to pay for. And there's 4 things you can't miss in your employee benefits. There's 4 that people can't afford to miss, and they're in this order. Protect your health. And they have great health insurance with state health benefit plan, great health insurance. Protect your income. Buy disability insurance. When you're younger in your years, when you get closer to retirement, you can let that go. You may not need it, but protect your income. Third is protect your life. Buy life insurance. After protecting your income from a sickness or accident, because we can all get sick or hurt and be out of work before we are to die at working ages. So protect your health, protect your income, protect your life. And number 4, the 4th most important, is save money. It ain't dental insurance, it's not cancer, it's save money. Or really, Everett, I would say spend less than you make for a long time, which, by the way, is the only financial planning course seminar we ever need to hear, right? Spend less than you make for a long time. That's all the financial planning advice that we need. Spend less than you make for a long time. It's easy to do. It's easy to hear, but it's hard to do, right? It is hard to do. I'll teach you how you can do that. But those 4 things, protect your health, protect your income, protect your life, and save money. And if you do those 4 things in that order, it will accommodate most of the eventualities that can happen in our lives financially. And you see people running off, buying all of these other things, and you're going, they're blowing their whole budget. They're insurance poor. Somebody said I'm not insurance poor, I'm insurance rich. That's kind of the problem. They have everything out of fear. So you asked for it. You asked for that. Sorry.
I did indeed, and I'm glad I did. That is excellent information.
That was a lot.
Well, as we were talking about employee benefits there, that brings up another question. How does the TRS benefit work in conjunction with employee benefits?
If you look at a house, it's the foundation. It's the cornerstone of what everything is built on. In financial planning, there's a pyramid, and the pyramid's bigger at the bottom and to the point at the top, thinner at the top. And teacher retirement would be down on the foundation of the house or the pyramid, along with things like health insurance and protecting your income. I mean, it's what everything runs on. It's what gives you, teacher retirement is what gives you health insurance after retirement. It's what is going to allow you to buy your life insurance or to just do the things you want to do. I mean, it's one of the biggest cornerstones of our overall financial planning. And as a financial planner, you look at what you all do for Georgia educators, and we're going to hopefully talk about the video. I mean, it just sets up an amazing life, certainly for Georgia educators. But so it's probably the biggest, again, cornerstone that everything is built off of once you leave being a Georgia educator.
Okay. Well, speaking of video, your $1 Million Wagon video is a big hit amongst our members. Could you tell us about that video for those who've not seen it? And what was your inspiration for putting it together?
First of all, thank you. First of all, everybody can go see this at $1milliondollarwagon.com. $1milliondollarwagon.com. We have it closed caption if anyone should need that as well. So this was super exciting to produce. $1 Million Wagon I had a burden just for the narrative that you always hear that educators have such a bad financial career. And it's just not true. And I've had this on my heart for a long time. And I heard an example of one of my friends that works for insurance in a large school system, somebody came and talked to him. It's on the video, you'll understand when I say this. And when this employee said what she said that's in the video, I said, I'm going to set out to tell this story. And it's super compelling. The main point of the video is that being a Georgia public educator makes you among the wealthiest retirees in the United States.
Wow.
Now, yeah. I mean, you don't hear that story.
Wow.
You hear the opposite of that story. And one day I just got infuriated. I said, that's a lie. That's not true. And I wanted to flip the script on that. And when you compare being a Georgia public educator to the security that the corporate world gives you, it's not even close. And it's not just, and this is all outlined. It's a 9-minute video, milliondollarwagon.com. It's a 9-minute video. And in fact, I'm looking at the wagon. It's here in our conference room with the big bank, the bank bag on top of it. It looks like it's filled with money. Everybody will understand when they go watch it. And it's not just the retirement income aspect, like teacher retire. It's not only that. It's health insurance that you get. It's the quality of work. It's the quality of life. It's your influence on the future. I mean, many other things. And I cover them in the video. Again, it's only 9 minutes long. And if you haven't seen milliondollarwagon.com, it will encourage and motivate you in the career field that you chose or you have chosen. And second, if you know somebody contemplating education, I'm going to tell you, it might inspire them to take that path. Because people think, well, I'm going to go work in the corporate world. And just spoiler alert, as a Georgia public educator, on the averages, you will be 5 to 14 times wealthier than the average corporate retiree in the United States. It's not even close.
Wow.
It's a fascinating story, and hopefully you can get this message out to your members to show them, their work that they did, was not in vain. It had a huge impact and influence, not only on generations of kids, but even in their financial life. And I just wanted to encourage and inspire your members what they have, because it's phenomenal. Son.
Excellent. Wow. I've seen it, but I'm going to look at it again. You inspired me to take another look, and I'm sure there'll be others who'll be seeing it for the first time, and they'll feel the same sense that I feel right now about how important and just how good we have it here in Georgia, as you laid it out there. So.
Everett, my mom and dad retired. They were blessed, and I got to watch them do what they wanted to do. And when my dad passed away, I saw my mom. She was able to have no debt and just live a great life with financial margin in her budget because of your retirement plan, because of the choice my dad made. And when he passed away, she had a great life and an unusual, an uncommon life because of teacher retirement system. It's phenomenal. And so I want this $1 Million Wagon to just inspire and light your members up that I did the right thing and it's for right reasons, and I am being rewarded for that. And hopefully we're able to accomplish the message.
Wow, just the way it should be. A true living textbook example of how it should be done. Well done. Well done.
Thank you, man.
Well, Dale, you made comparisons between private and public sector in retirement planning. How does a pension benefit compare to a defined contribution plan?
All right. So first of all, the basics of what a pension or a defined benefit plan and a defined contribution, both of them are employer-sponsored or employer-provided plans. And that's kind of where most of the similarities end, the biggest similarities end. So a defined benefit, what teacher retirement system is, a defined benefit plan is an employer-sponsored plan that has a formula that defines what your benefit will be. All right, 2% times average number of years and times years of service. It defines that. And the majority of that is funded by an employer, partially by an employee. And it defines the outcome. It's what TRS is. A defined contribution plan, the biggest examples of those are like a 401k, or in the school world, a 403b. A defined contribution plan defines what the contribution can be, 100% of income up to, say, I think it's 19,500. It indexes and goes up all the time. So it defines what the contribution will be, not what the outcome will be. And in the $1 Million Wagon, I explain what happened to those and why schools do and don't do that. So a 401k or 403b, and you can have different kinds, pre-tax or Roth types. And Georgia educators, here's the great thing, is you all have both of those types of plans available. Most corporations don't, which is leads me to the next point. When people talk about working in the corporate world, so if people listening had a friend or somebody who was thinking of leaving education, going in the corporate world, you have to remember, most Americans, this is important, do not work for Fortune 500 companies. Most all of America works for small companies. They don't work for huge companies. They work for small companies. And the great thing, think about this, the great thing about working as an educator is you are working for typically the largest and most stable employer in any county.
Very true.
Think about this. And I have lots of other friends that are brokers, and they do insurance for corporations, and they tell me, yeah, we lose clients all the time because big companies come in and take over the benefits. They lay off employees. They're going out of business, or they're furlough. They're cutting people. They're moving employees. Schools, they stay in business. They didn't lay off during COVID, so it's a great employer to work for. And we talk about many of those positives in milliondollarwagon.com.
Okay. Well, as a baby boomer, I often wonder what other generations do differently or similarly to those of us of the boomer generation. So are there things that millennials and Gen Zers should be doing to prepare for retirement that's different from the way that, say, baby boomers do?
Absolutely. So be much wiser. In general, that's a harsh statement, be maybe smarter in their investment objectives than their retiring counterparts. I touched on this earlier. This boomer generation, of which I am, is far too conservative in their investments long term. And part of that, there's a great quote, financial quote, more money was lost remembering the Depression than was lost in the Depression. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So because of that, well, it can go down. People have taken decades of very conservative, fixed type investments because it could go down. I was just looking at a statistic this morning. 74% of the time, the stock market in general is positive. It's up. And in general, common stocks of large companies over time have averaged right at 10% return. Small stocks since 1926 have averaged 11.1% rate of return versus like 3% for bonds and banks and inflation. So when you look at this, and think about this, if their retirement plan with teacher retirement system is a fixed account, and that's the majority of your retirement income, educators can be far more aggressive in their investments than they typically are. If you have this huge equivalent body of money that I explain what that means in $1 Million Wagon, it allows you to be more aggressive in your investment dollars. And Everett, when you take a diversified portfolio, which means your money is invested in different asset classes like stocks and bonds and cash and some little bits of real estate, maybe international stuff, a diversified portfolio, so that some things are up when some things are down. You know, it's like a flywheel of a car. They're all not moving up and down at the same time. Okay. But if you invest in a smartly allocated, newer alert, allocated portfolio over 30 years, it's the difference in hundreds of thousands of dollars in retirement versus putting it in fixed account. And the largest portion of an educator in Georgia's retirement is in a fixed account. And you have many educators I see that are putting their 403B investments and savings in fixed accounts. It doesn't make any sense. Especially young savers coming out of college putting money in fixed accounts. And it's well, I want to indict why, but I mean, a rep should be kicked off of school if you're putting 23-year-old in fixed accounts. And they said, well, educators are conservative. I don't buy that. Just teach what it means. But this is a huge mistake that young educators make. An educator that's 24 should not have investments in the same thing that is an educator that's 61. Their portfolios, their investments should be different. And I believe these plans, supplemental retirement plans, the 403Bs that complement TRS, I believe they'll be built differently in the future. Because that world, that 403B is built as it is. It's built to fail educators, to fail them.
Interesting. Very interesting. You know, I have my youngest son, he's into investing and you know, the younger generation, they have something that us boomers don't have. They have more time. I mean,
absolutely.
Time is it. You can't buy time. And so you raise very valid points and good information there. Just, shouldn't be doing it the same way at the ages between the two classes there. So
there's a great, you know, when I go and talk to kids, it's the talkaboutmoney.com. I want to finish with that. And I talk to these kids and new hires of schools, and I say, is the stock market risky? And somebody, yes. And somebody will go, no. Well, it's actually both. It's risky short term. It's not risky long term historically. And if you look at the history of the stock market, and in this class I show from 1926 till today, and the worst events in human history, the Depression, World War II, I mean, Arab oil embargo, I mean, on and on and on, 9/11, those things barely record as blips on the long-term trajectory of the stock market. Think of it this way. The stock market is doing a yo-yo going up a flight of stairs. Now, step to step, the yo-yo is up and down. But the trajectory, think about the trajectory of the stairs. The yo-yo is up and down on a trajectory that is what? Up.
Right.
So if you're going to the next step, the yo-yo could be down. But if you're going to the top, even when the yo-yo's down at the top, you're a lot higher than where you started out on the bottom step. So from the perspective of, is it risky? Long term, the riskiest thing to do is to not have money in equities in the United States. And I want to make a concerted effort to try and change the 403B industry in public schools. It needs to be drastically overhauled. And there's a younger generation of finance directors that are looking at their counterparts in 401ks, and I believe they're going to change it. And you build these plans to just have the best thing to do, make it the easiest thing, and people will stick there. So
I agree. Well said. Well, you mentioned, as we want to get information out to our members so that they can educate themselves about the information you're sharing, you mentioned the $1,000,000wagon.com. Where else can our members find your content to educate themselves?
All right, so $1,000,000wagon.com. You can go to thetalkaboutmoney.com. This is a lesson. I'm always talking to my kids. And one night in our kitchen, my son said, "Dad, you've got to tell this story to all of our friends." So I wrote this lesson, and it kind of kind of took off a little bit, and now I go around to high schools. I'm saying this so anybody listening to this, if you have influence at a school, I'll go do this talk. And here's the point. And this is high school seniors and college kids. So if you're listening to this and you have a 26-year-old down, or you know somebody that's about to get their first real job. Think about it, Everett, when you started your first job, like job that had like an HR form you had to fill out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I went from making nothing, basically, I was part-time, but I went from basically making nothing to making some huge number. It was the biggest number I'd ever seen in my life. Biggest number I'd ever seen. Instead of taking all of it, it's the biggest number. I'm at nothing. Make 70% your 100%. 70 was still the biggest number I had ever seen. Make 70% your 100%. You don't know that 70 is not 100. You don't have a standard of living established, as my friend David Hilton said. And whatever you establish 70% as your standard of living, that becomes your reality. Everett, listen, it's the biggest earthly decision anyone will ever make. I could argue and say, what about the person that you marry? Here, I would say this, I would rebut that and say, here's the thing. If you don't get money right, half of our marriages are gone.
Ooh, well said.
And the other half that stick, many of them aren't what they could be because they're fighting about money.
Wow.
It may be the most important decision. When you get your first check, only take 70% of it. And the average American, Everett, doesn't even stop at 100. They live on about 105% of that check. Listen to me. And if you take 70 and you make 70 your 100, here's what happens. And I give them a $36,000 starting career example, which is, my friend in Fulton County said that's an average starting teacher's salary. So I started at $36,000. And I go to the end of their working career, age 67. And at the end, and by the way, when you take 70%, here's what you do with the 30. I want you to save 20%, listen to me, and give 10% away. And I don't care where you give it, Everett. Wow. It doesn't matter. Give it away. Challenge me, and give it away. And here's what happens. At the end of your life, you've given away $457,000, and watch and see what that does to your life. And you have $5.2 million. Wow. And when you make this decision, and by the way, this decision to only take 70%, listen to me, it doesn't matter what kind of family you come from. It doesn't matter what kind of education you have. All of that's over. All it matters, all it cares about, Everett, is that you make one decision in your life to not take 100% and to take 70. And to start giving. And when you do that, listen, everything about your life changes from that moment on. Your marriage is better. Your vacations are better. Your career is better. Your boss is better, nicer. Everything about life changes from one moment. And I want to reach that child that moment is, see, that moment's behind me to make 70 my 100. That's behind me. Mm-hmm. But I want those kids that choice, that decision is in front of them. And I want to get them before they get that check. And I want to tell this story to them. It's the most important decision they might make on earth. So the talk about money, I recorded that actually in my living room during COVID last year. I was supposed to be going to schools and it blew up. So we recorded it and recorded it inside. TheTalkAboutMoney.com, MillionDollarWagon.com, and DaleAlexander.com is my speaking site, DaleAlexander.com. And then our corporate site is AlexanderAndCompany.com. Spell it out, AlexanderAndCompany.com. So those are some places that people can get my content. And on my speaking site, I've got other kind of motivational lessons that people can watch too.
Wow, man, Dale, that's outstanding advice once again. As an individual who's married and as an individual who likes to vacation and as
Come
an
on.
individual who's in the middle of his career, yes, we all want that to be better. So yes,
Yes, sir.
I needed to hear that. Thank you for the reminder as I refocus myself based on what you just said. It just, needed to hear that. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, man.
You mentioned how to reach your company just in case others wanted to reach out to you or your company. So they got the Alexander and Company.
Alexander and Company, spell it all out all the way.com, alexanderandcompany.com.
Awesome. Well, before we let you go, Dale, are there any parting thoughts or advice that trust me, folks, he's already shared a ton of information with us, good quality information. But Dale, if there's any parting information or advice that you'd like to share before we let you go, now would be a great time to do that.
Coming from a mom and dad who were educators, there are things that you did in a career as an educator. There are trees you planted that you may never sit under those trees, under the shade of those trees. I had 7 men show up at my father's funeral from 1964 on the football team in Hayhiro, Georgia that my dad coached as a 26-year-old brand new coach. And they came up afterwards and they said, your dad was the father, was the husband, and was the leader that all of us knuckleheads wanted to be when we were 18. And Dad never knew that until the last few years of his life, when all these people kept coming back into his life. And so leadership, as John Maxwell says, is influence. And the path that you chose, you'll never know what shade those trees are giving that you did. Some of the greatest leaders, influencers in my life were a bus driver and a cafeteria lady. So, because it's influence. So I just want y'all to bask in that knowledge of what you gave and what you did. It was not in vain. It made our world a better place. And I love you because my parents were in that, grew up doing it, and it means the world to me. So I just can't thank you, Everett, and y'all enough for letting me, of all people, get on this podcast with you. I'm honored, I'm humbled, and thank you for the work y'all do, because it's giving kids like I was a quality of life that his mom and dad are going to be taken care of, and it's why I'm here today, able to do this back to you. I'm giving back to what y'all gave to my family. So I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
We appreciate you as well. And I have to say this, even at this very moment, I have chills up and down my arms, my back, my neck. And it's often said, what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And I can feel what you're saying and what you shared with us today, and your passion and your love for the educators of the state of Georgia. So without a doubt, Dale, one of the best interviews we've ever had on our podcast. And I cannot tell you how much it means to me personally. And I know that our listeners, wherever they may be, will have the same sentiment. So my goodness, man, thank you so much for what you shared with us today. It invaluable information, but even more so, just your heart, it comes across. And I want to be sure to say that. So thank you very much.
Appreciate all you. Take care, buddy.
Will do. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the close of another edition of TRS, Your Retirement in Focus. If you have questions, concerns, or feedback, you can feel free to reach us at podcast@trsga.com. That's podcast@trsga.com. Be sure to join us next time. So long. Stay safe.